Hari Om. Let's start with the camera kuda on chepandi. Hari Om. Let's start. Om samasta jana kalyani niratam karunamayam namami chinmayam devam sadgurum brahma vidvaram vasudeva sutam devam kamsa chanura mardanam devaki paramanandam krishnam vande jagadgurum tvameva mata cha pita tvameva tvameva bandhusya sakha tvameva tvameva vidya dravidam tvameva tvameva sarvam amadeva deva tvameva sarvam kurudeva deva. Hari Om. We are discussing the fundamentals of the Advaita Vedanta and how the Advaita Vedanta differs from the Vishishtadvaita, and some of the objections raised by Bhagavan Ramanuja in his Sri Bhashya on avidya of Advaita Vedanta. So we have to be very clear in terms of what is nature of avidya, because the discussion is it is the avidya that is causing the problem, because I do not know who I am, or I do not know that I am already full or complete, because I know I am conscious entity, I know I am an existent entity, but what I am looking for is happiness, and happiness, full happiness or uninterrupted, inexhaustible happiness comes only when I recognize that I am full by myself. There is nothing lacking in me. That means the limitless alone is happy state, and any limitation causes a problem. Therefore, Aham Brahmasmi has to be recognized. Until then, I'll be seeking for happiness only. So therefore, the samsara, or because I want to become infinite, because infinite alone is a complete happy state. But if I think I am a finite, I can never become infinite, because finite cannot become infinite. But the longing to become infinite is inherent or intrinsic for every human being. For in fact, every being wants to be happy, and their fear and the limitless alone is the happy state, and happiness doesn't come from outside, and still I am looking for happiness outside. So all these problems are essentially samsara, and that's because of, according to Advaita, due to avidya. Avidya means not knowing my true nature, not knowing that I am already happy, I am still looking for happiness, and not knowing that I am full and complete by myself, therefore I am looking for gaining this, gaining that. So I am trying to go on becoming infinite by adding finite things. But finite plus finite is always finite, can never reach infinite. So I cannot solve the problem, but I cannot stop trying to solve the problem. And that's what is called samsara. And now, why I have that samsara? Because I do not know that happiness comes from my own self. Or aham brahmasmi, I do not know. This is what Vedanta also says so. And says, how can I be Brahmasmi? That's essentially how can avidya came, how did it come, who has the avidya? All these questions do come, because Bhagavan Ramanuja raises this, says avidya cannot belong to the jiva, avidya cannot belong to the Brahman, jiva is product of avidya, therefore he depends already on avidya because of his own generation, and whereas the Brahman being of the nature of knowledge, and avidya means ignorance, is of the nature of darkness, how can light and darkness exist together? And we have systematically addressed, yes, anything if it exists, it cannot be away from Brahman. So Brahman has to be adhishthanam, or supporting anything that exists, because Brahman being infinite, and nothing can be different from infinite. Therefore, if there is an avidya, if there is an ignorance, has to be in Brahman only. So from the point of absolute nature of the reality, there is no avidya. But from the point of relative reality, because I am seeing creation, and because I don't know, then I am asking these questions. So therefore, the avidya from the point of Brahman is only Adhishtanam. That means he is the supporter. So how can you have a light and darkness? That's why we say I can be dreaming I'm lying down in a pitch dark room, and then when I go to a deep sleep state, and there I can dream of a bright sun, and in the forest in the middle of in the midday, where I am sleeping here in a dark room without a light in the sleeping room, where at the same time I am dreaming, and the dream sun is not opposite to the darkness that in the waking state. So essentially, there is an ontological difference between the waking state and the dream state. So there can be contradiction there, but the contradiction is only resolved once we understand that the reality of the dream is different from the reality of the waking state. In the same way, Vedanta uses the same analysis, and this dream example is given by the Upanishad itself in the Mandukya Upanishad. Exhaustive analysis of waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state are given, and therefore using the scriptural statement that one infinite cannot become anything, at the same time it appears to become something. So therefore there is an ontological difference in terms of pure Brahman, which is undifferentiated, where there is no Sajati, Vijati, Swagata Vedas. That means differences of different kinds, like trees are different from plants, and trees are different from the stones, and stones are different from pots. All these called different jatis, and there are no Sajati Vedas. Say one tree is different from another tree, is different like that. All are within the same phylum or same class. There is a differences. That's called Jati Veda. And internal differences within the same tree. Roots are different. The flowers are different. Leaves are different. Branches are different. That's called internal differences. None of them are there because it is infinite. So logically, infinite, we cannot have any differences of any kind because it is infinite. Only for finite things we can say it has a head, it has a limbs, and all those differences of internal differences can be found. So in the Ramanuja's philosophy, he states that by proclamation that because of the Virat Swarupa, Brahman is shown in the total Brahman, all beings are in the Brahman itself. So on that basis, he says that there is a Swagata Veda. That means even though it is Advaita, from the point of totality, there are internal differences, and internal differences are because of the total Brahman is constituted of all Jivas put together plus the Jagat. So Jiva, Jagat put together becomes the body of Brahman. That's called Virat Swarupa. So Advaita Vedanta does not negate that one. It says that is also part of Vyavaharika Satyam. So therefore, the criticism that there are the Advaita talks about this the pure Sat, that is that which is pure existence, that is Sat, and there is an Asat which is non-existence at any time, no locus for existence, and the whole world doesn't come under that which remains the same in all the periods of time. If that is alone real, it doesn't fall unto that because there is a changing things all the time. It doesn't fall under Asat. Therefore, we created an intermediate one called Mithya. Mithya means that which appears to be there and continuously changing, and that involves an adhishtanam, a support, and the Brahman is the support. If something is changing, there has to be changeless entity, which is the adhara, which is supporting the changes. And that changeless entity is Brahman, because scripture says Brahman himself became many. Remaining as Brahman still became many, just like gold became many ornaments. So all these are self-consistent analysis that tells you that even though scripture doesn't use the word mithya for the world, and thinking that it's only Advaitic concept, it is in fact statement by the scripture saying Vacharambanam Vikaro Namadheyam. It's on the creation is only Namke Vaste. That means only for namesake creation. In and through the namesake there is an Adhara, Adhishtanam, that supports all these changes. And that's implied by example of gold becoming into ornaments. So Advaita Vedanta prescribes, says, or subscribes that creation is only a Vivartavada. Vivarta means only transformationless transformation. Just gold undergoing transformationless transformation to become rings and bangles and necklace, etc. Because gold still remaining as a gold, but different names and forms, different attributes of each one, different varieties and varieties of ornaments, all are created. So in this, therefore, we have an example that scripture itself provides, and we call it the one which is temporally real is called mithya. And whereas Ramanuja also uses the same, but calls the temporary real is also real, but also accept that there is one which is permanently real, which is changeless real, and that is the Parabrahma or Supreme Brahman. And therefore they do accept the ontological differences between the Parabrahma, which they call a Divya Vibhuti, or that which is the total Vibhuti or pure Sattvic, the Prakriti, and the other one which is changing or impure due to the presence of Rajas and Tamas. So only how you pronounce it, how you name it is essentially what is being taught, and that's what is being said. And in the case of the Advaita Vedanta, they differentiate what is real as Sat, what is unreal as Asat, and what is neither Sat nor Asat, and that's called the Mithya. So Sadasat Vilakshanam. So in the Viveka Chudamani says Sannapya Sanna Ubhayatmikano Bhinnapya Bhinna Ubhayatmikano and Sangapya Nanga Ubhayatmikano Mahatbhuta Anirvachani Rupa. It is of the nature of, you cannot say this or you cannot say that. So is the ring really real or not? Ring is real only for transactional purposes, but there is no ring substance there. So if say ring weighs 10 grams means it's not the weight of a ring, it is the weight of the gold only. So what it counts is only the gold, not the ring. Ring is only name for a form, we call it. Ring is different from gold, or ring is same as a gold depending upon how you look at it. Ring doesn't, there is no real existence for it, but ring has only dependent existence on adhishtanam. Dependent exists on that which supports, because gold is the one that supports the whole ring. So therefore, without the presence of the gold, ring cannot exist. In the same way, in the whole universe exists because of Brahman. So Brahman is adhishtanam. So when he became many, now I cannot look for Brahman anywhere, and in fact I cannot look because in being infinite, so I have to see in and through every object the nature of Brahman, or understand the Brahman. So I had to use intellectual discriminative faculty to see Brahman in and through every object or every being also. Therefore, the criticism of the statement that you have mithya is not a valid statement is itself is not really correct. Because Bhagavan Ramana also uses a different terminology to indicate the same thing, even though he doesn't accept it. So now the second question that is, who has the Lokasava Vidya? We exhaustively analyze. We analyze what is the structure of Jiva in the process. Jiva involves essentially, you can think of 5 aspects, or you can think of 3 aspects, or even you can think of 2 aspects. When we say 5 aspects, depending upon the context, one differentiates what we are emphasizing. So in the structure of Jiva, it is pure consciousness, all pervading, is adhishtanam, is a support. And we are talking about now the reflecting medium that consists of the buddhi, the mind, intellect, and the antahkarana, and also we can talk about the gross body, the physical body. So we are talking about the karana sarira, the causal body, and the sukshma sarira, the subtle body, and the gross body. These 3 are bodies which are inert, But this is activated as though by the reflection of the consciousness in the buddhi, because buddhi, subtle body, is capable of reflecting the in all its glory, and in the process of reflection it also becomes a conscious entity or luminous entity. So we have total consciousness, and now we have a reflected consciousness in the local equipment, because it's a local equipment that is reflecting. And in the reflection, the mind and buddhi are activated. So we have original consciousness, call it OC, and we have reflected consciousness because the medium is able to reflect, and that's called RC, and that's called Chidabhasa, that which makes the body, mind, intellect active as though alive. And we have the three bodies, which is Karana Sarira, Sushma Sarira, and the Sthula Sarira, or gross body, the causal body, the subtle body, and the grosser body. And who is a jiva? Depending upon your context, when I say I am fat, we are not referring about any of the other than the Sthula Sarira. So the gross body is fat, therefore I say I am fat. Who is I am fat? Who is claiming I am? That's what we need to find out. But when I say right now, I am sitting here and I am not there, that means we are talking about with reference to the gross body. The movement, physical movement by the gross body alone. And that whenever I identify myself with the gross body, the jiva is as though gross body. But when I identify myself with the intellect, say I understand this, I am an intelligent person or I am an ignorant person, when we are talking about the state of the mind, we are identifying with the subtle body as I am this. So identification of the Chidabhasa with the subtle body is also jiva. Now identification with when you say I am sleeping or I slept very well, in the deep sleep state it's only causal body. Causal body is Karana Sarira, and I slept very well. I did not know anything at that time. So during the sushupti, that is in the deep sleep state, I am as though identifying myself with the causal body. So depending upon the application or depending upon the context, I keep changing identifications. But who is that I am is starting with Chidabhasa, reflected consciousness. But reflected consciousness is only reflecting that which is pure consciousness. So we have the pure consciousness, we have reflected consciousness, and we have the three bodies. Now who has the avidya? Pure consciousness cannot have avidya. So jiva scripture is trying to point out that you are indeed that pure consciousness. So when does Krishna say that I am pure consciousness? He says prakrutyeva cha karmani kriyamanani sarvasaha yah pasyati tadatmanam akartaram sapasyati. The one who recognizes that I am not a doer, and the doing is done by prakriti only. Prakriti starts with what? All from the antakarana, starting from the Sushma, the Karana Sarira, and the Sushma Sarira, and the Sthula Sarira. All are part of Prakriti only. That which is beyond the Prakriti, apareya mitaswanyam, that which is beyond the Prakriti, that supports all these things, is the original consciousness. So even though original consciousness is only one aspect, the five aspects, that is the real substantive, because that's the one from which the whole universe came, by which it's sustained, into which goes back. Just as the gold is the substantive of all the rings and bangles, the value of any of the instruments depends upon the value of the gold only, not on the name and a form. So if I have substantial knowledge, means knowledge of the gold only. Substantial knowledge is also in the Vedanta is knowledge of Brahman only. So if I know gold, I know all the ornaments. Therefore, eka jnanena sarva jnanam bhavati. So I'm not losing it. So, eka vijnanena sarva vijnanam bhavati. Knowing one thing, I know everything. Or kasmin na bhagavo vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. Knowing which, please teach me that knowing which I know, I will know everything. And the teacher teaches about what is Brahman, because Brahman, knowing Brahman, I know everything. So when you're talking about Ramanuja criticizing avidya, so avidya is locused in the jiva, avidya is the locused in the Brahman. Avidya locused in the Brahman because there cannot be anything other than the Brahman. At the same time, Brahman is not ignorant also. So both are valid statement depending upon from what reality we are talking about. Gold doesn't have any ornaments. Gold itself became any ornament. So both are correct statements also. So Maya tadabidam sarvam jagad avyaktamurtina mastani sarvabhutani. All beings are in me are najamastani bhutani. There are no beings in me. So contradiction, Krishna is not contradicting himself. He is only telling ontologically two different levels of understanding. Therefore, I am never a doer. Everything is Prakriti. That means that's what Krishna wants us to realize. That's what the realization involves, where I have to identify myself with the pure consciousness that is all pervading, neither with the RC, that means neither with the Chidabhasa or reflected consciousness, nor with the any of the five Sariras, because they are all essentially continuously changing, and what is changeless is only that which is pure consciousness alone. So from that point, avidya belongs to only antahkarana. That means the buddhi only. It is the mind that doesn't know that I am Brahman, or the consciousness that I am is from the Brahman. And I need the buddhi. Therefore the scripture says, go and learn Vedanta from a competent teacher. So tad vijnanartham sa gurum evam abhigachet. So that instruction is only for the buddhi, and I have to use the buddhi. Buddhi means mind and buddhi or intellect, and inquire into the nature. It's not going some beyond the buddhi. It is understanding. The truth is beyond the buddhi, but understanding has to be done with the buddhi, and that's what is being discussed elaborately by Advaita to make sure the criticism of Ramanuja, we don't get carried away, and we have a clear understanding of who exactly is jiva and what exactly we are talking about when we talk about transactional jiva and we are talking about absolute nature of the jiva. And the equation is with reference to the absolute nature of jiva. That we will go into the next talk in terms of how the explanation of Tattvamasi is done both by the Ramanuja as well as the Shankara. With this we'll stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.